Welcome to Talking Carts, the Consumer Reports podcast that helps you shop smarter, save more, and feel good about every purchase. I'm Tanya Christian.
And I'm Brian Vines.
And this is Talking Carts. Now, when the Jetsons premiered way back in 1962, the concept of robot vacuums, flat-screen TVs, and smartwatches were the stuff of science fiction. The animated show was set in 2062, and while their flying car is not yet a reality, many of those made-up innovations are widely available to add to your cart right now.
Well, flying carts aside, in 2026, our truth may be even more advanced than their fiction. The Internet of Things is a reference to vehicles, appliances, physical devices, and objects that with software, sensors, and network connectivity allow for data sharing and collection, which is a long way of saying your crock pot can talk to your fridge.
Yes, we're talking smart home technology, and we're doing it with CR senior home and appliance writer, Dan Wroclawski, who lives with enough smart home devices to fill a few carts.
I know he does. Well, before we bring in Dan, Tanya, I would love to know, have you embraced that smart home life right now?
I have. I mean, we are not anywhere close to Jetsons or Dan, because I know he has everything set up to his smart home. But honestly, any product that can be connected to my smart home, I have it connected to my smart home.
Good.
So my blinds, my garage door, my front door, and my Ring doorbell, the videos, all of that is connected to a hub. My home is pretty smart. I'll say that.
Okay. Well, listen, we are people who love innovation and we jump on. We're all over social and we customize everything. But I'm a little bit behind the beat. My house is not smart at all. I've got like the thermostat that is connected to the phone, but I don't have like my blinds and all. It sounds like you're like living in the future. My like biggest foray into smart home living is my toilet. Like I have the smart toilet, which is not connected to the internet. So I don't know. We're going to have to ask Dan if that is smart or not. But I love that thing. It's perfect. But other than that, maybe I'll up my smart home life and get in on the innovation.
I think it makes life easier. I'll say that much. Now, are there concerns around privacy? Yes. I feel like Google knows everything I'm doing, but I guess you just have to measure the trade-offs.
Yeah, trade-offs there are, and I'm sure we're going to get into that plus a lot more when we talk to Dan on the other side.
He's no George Jetson, but Dan Wroclawski has, at last count, some 70 plus smart home devices running in his home right now. Aside from being an early adopter of consumer home technology, Dan has been covering consumer products from refrigerators to high chairs for more than a decade, and now he's here. Welcome to Talking Carts, Dan.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
We are very happy to have you. We've established from the outset that Tanya is further along in her smartening up of her home than I am. Maybe just to settle something from the beginning and give us a little like landscape. Just because something like a toilet may plug in doesn't necessarily mean it's a smart device. Yes or no?
That is true. There are smart toilets. I don't think we'll get to those today, but yes, generally a smart product is one that connects to the internet or at the very least to your smartphone in some capacity. And whether that's to allow you to remotely control it or get analytics, say it's like, a wearable or something like that. That's pretty much the requirement in order for a device to be smart. Now, that doesn't mean it actually is smart and good at what it does. That just means it is connected.
It's funny you say that because, sometimes too much smart technology and then it gets a little dumb. But thankfully, the products that we rate at Consumer Reports, our top rated ones, tend to work very well. Dan, do you think living a smart home life has made you healthier and wealthier?
I think it's helped me be a little healthier. I don't think I'm wealthier. If anything, I'm poorer from it because these products are not necessarily cheap. But no, I use a lot of smart health tech in the home. So I'm a big Peloton user. I use an Apple Watch to track like my health and fitness all the time, and I have a smart scale. I'm into that, and it has helped me be healthier, which is nice.
You mentioned the scale. We have a colleague who tried one of those scales and it was a little too smart. She had to send it back. It was giving a little too much information on the body weight and everything. So it's nice to hear that you like yours and that there are some out there that are actually enjoyable to use.
Okay, not to get hung up on the scale thing, but we actually have a smart scale as well, and I don't use it, but it's literally under the bathroom vanity right now, and I forgot that I had it until you mentioned it, because my husband is obsessed with all of his macros and the BMI or the whatever that thing tells you about, and he just made me download the app last week. I've yet to open it. So yeah, I got a smart house. What?
There you go. You got it. You're on your way.
So looking at that device, like we heard one review there from one of our colleagues, you like yours. There's one in use in my house. What innovation is further along than you expected, and what might be inexplicably lagging?
I actually think, and this might be a unpopular opinion among people who cover this area, but I think the AI stuff is actually much further along than I would have expected it to be at this point. We already have things like, it's going to trigger mine at the other side of the room here, but Alexa Plus, that is actually quite capable and much more capable than the predecessor, the original version. In terms of tech that is lagging, I can't point to like a single device or type of device, but I would say what's lagging is just all of these things working together and working together well. There's been a lot of improvement there. We can later talk about, there's this new standard called Matter, which you'll start seeing this Matter logo on a lot of smart products, even at retail today. And so it's getting better, but it's still a big hurdle, and it's a really big frustration and pain point for consumers.
There, we talked about healthier and wealthier a little earlier. But I do have a question about that, because what I do notice about smart devices, and one thing I like about it is they can generally push new updates. And so you might not necessarily have to get a new product every time a new update comes out. They kind of push it to you. Now, you have Alexa. I'm more of a Google person. And recently, my home hubs were updated with the Gemini technology. So now they're like, the answers are a little better. The way she speaks to me is just a little bit more like, all right, that's my girl. You know, she knows who I am. We're friends. But how exactly does all that work? Like, how is it keeping up? You mentioned AI, so that kind of made me think of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, these companies are often, not always, but often incentivized to just keep sort of adding new features and functionalities. Just today, I was learning about actually how Samsung is adding more like aging in place and elder care features to its smart home system. And that is something that they're just doing, and it's free. And if you're already plugged into their system, you can take advantage of it. So they're really, I think, just incentivized to get people to keep using these products, like enjoy them, maybe even fall in love with them, so that the whole smart home as a concept just becomes stickier and people become more interested in it.
Well, looking at those sticky homes, this is the leave the world behind question. Now, I don't know if you saw it, but the 2023 movie with Julia Roberts and Mahershala Ali, where their whole lives devolved because their phones, their TV, and all their tech, including those self-driving cars, all broke down, and it was like a calculated thing. So at the heart of the question is, does the fridge really need to talk to the crock pot and everything be smart? Like, really, are we making things better or setting ourselves up?
So I have not seen that movie, but you make a great point. A lot of this tech is not by any means necessary. And I think where this industry gets into a lot of hot water is when they make the smarts a requirement for the product to function. And so we are starting to see a lot of products and a push away from that towards what's called local control, where these things will just work in your home without an internet connection. And that's really what we want to prioritize, because at the end of the day, your refrigerator needs to keep food cold. It does not need to give you recipes or, tell you when you're running low of eggs. Like all that stuff is nice and it's additive, but the core function needs to still be there and needs to work well and be reliable.
Amen.
And like when that comes up though, I also think about like our seniors. I have a really good senior friend. She's 83 and Carol is always like, I don't know what's going on. And I think about my grandmother too. Yes, having these smart products are great, but then when you make it a mandate, you just have to understand that everyone is not going to be able to adapt. Even with like the QR codes at restaurants, sometimes I'll go out with Carol and they're like, pull out that QR code. She's like, we just need a regular menu, please. Everything does not need to be all that smart. So, I mean, I think that does raise a concern for some people. It's like, yeah, some things should be smart. It makes our lives easier when they're smart. And then other things is like, yeah, like just keep my food cold. I don't need it to do all the extras. Bells and whistles are great, but they're not necessary.
1,000. Shout out to Carol and Grandma, because like I'm getting more and more on that train every day, Dan.
Yes.
But like conversely, there are people who are worried about whether the TV is watching them. Like with us inviting companies into our home, like you couldn't even say that A word a second ago without lighting her up on the other side of the room. And I used to have one. Every morning I would wake up and say, hey, Alexa, what's the weather? Hey, Alexa, tell me a joke. And I still say it now, even though the Alexa isn't even plugged in. I'm just like, Alexa, what's the weather? But are we bringing these companies into our home to spy on us and paying for the privilege? Like, how vulnerable are we to bad actors as well who are trying to get in and do nefarious stuff?
Yeah, these are great questions and concerns. In terms of privacy, unfortunately, yes, you are essentially inviting these companies into your home and they're going to collect data and use it. Some will be more nefarious and, sell it or do, almost sort of exploitive feeling things with it. Others will simply just use it to improve the product, and that's usually of benefit to you. But what you kind of have to think about with them is sort of having a value exchange. So are you getting a good value out of the smarts of this thing? If it's really like valuable to you and you enjoy using it, you almost feel like you can't live without it. Like to your point of you still shout to Alexa, even though it's no longer plugged in. Like there's a part of you that probably likes having that like voice assistant just there that you can access. So you really have to think about the value, and is it valuable to you? And then related to that, is it worth sort of releasing this data about you to this company in exchange for that? So that's what you have to kind of think about there. In terms of security, unfortunately, whenever anything gets connected to the internet, it becomes vulnerable. There's just no getting around that unless you want to, completely disconnect from the world. But there are a bunch of things you can do to just lock down your smart home products and make them safer and less of a risk to being hacked. And it's simple things that you've probably heard before, using strong, unique passwords for every single device, using two-factor authentication, enabling automatic updates. In terms of like more smart home specific things, you want to, just be thoughtful about where you put speakers with microphones and where you put security cameras. Like, you probably don't want a security camera in your bedroom or your bathroom. That's not going to go well. Just being sort of mindful like that about how you're using these things. And then another great tip I always like to tell people is a lot of today's Wi-Fi routers actually have additional guest networks that you can turn on with like a different name and password. And so a really great thing to do to protect yourself is to turn on that guest network and put all of your smart home products on that guest network and save the main network for your personal devices, your smartphone, your laptop, your tablet, and just keep them siloed that way. And so if, God forbid, one of your smart devices is hacked and they try to get into your network, they can't get to your more personal devices where all your really important information is saved.
Genius. I wish we had an air horn like on the radio, Tanya, like, burr, 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 burr. That was like news you could use. Switch up those different segments of your Wi-Fi modem.
Definitely. And Dan, I know that you did that experiment with the doorbell, right? Where it was really easy to hack into somebody's video and kind of see what was going on. And I'm just curious about the privacy of this all. Like, are there certain brands that people should stay away from? Or, like they've been proven that, okay, this is the kind of brand that respects your privacy, even though you are sharing information with them, maybe they're not selling it. Because I think that's something that a lot of people are concerned about when it comes to the smart home. Like you said, there's speakers here, there's video cameras there, and then they're sending all this information. What exactly is being sent and how safe is it? Like, can somebody spy on me if they're just that genius?
Yeah, so a lot of it depends on the product and the brand. So that case you were mentioning, that was actually a very insecure and poorly and cheaply made video doorbell that we just happened to get into our labs and test. And our resident hacker, Steve, figured out like, oh, this thing's really easy to hack. And he was able to, like, with very little effort, pull up a camera feed of another one of our colleagues, like from like 3,000 miles away. She was on the West Coast. He's on the East Coast. That was just a very poorly made product. We actually got the company to, basically stop selling them. And they even I think they got fined by the FCC as a result of all of this.
CR wins again.
Yes. Yeah.
For consumers.
Yes. It was great to be able to help consumers in that way with that. But that's kind of an outlier and more extreme example. Your big name brands are usually pretty safe. Like with video doorbells, your Ring, Arlo, Google, like they're not necessarily the most private. They're going to collect your data and they're going to use it to improve their products and all that. But they do have robust security and safeguards to try to, keep your footage at least private to you and not, being released to hackers or what have you. So yeah, you want to just pay attention to the brand. One thing I often tell people is don't buy, I call them alphabet soup brands that you'll see on like Amazon or even Walmart.com where it's some name you can't even pronounce. Don't buy those products. Just don't. They often have terrible security and terrible privacy. You just really want to be thoughtful about what you're choosing to purchase.
That's important.
So Dan, we have a little thing that we're doing here called Asked and Answered. Out there in the world listening to the pod, you've got questions and we've got experts with answers. So give your typing thumbs a rest while we pose 3 of the most Googled questions about smart home tech to the man who, as we said, lives with over 70 smart home devices. So Dan, number one of the most asked Google questions about smart home tech. How do I start building a smart home?
That is a great question. But before you think about just what you should go out and buy, think about what you already own, because research shows that a large percentage of the population already owns a handful of smart home products, whether that's a doorbell or a plug or, a smart scale like we were talking about earlier. Think about what you already own and write it down on a list. And we'll come back to that in a second. After that, what you want to think about is what brand of personal devices do you use? Like, do you use an iPhone or an Android phone or a Samsung Galaxy? Do you use Amazon Echo speakers or a Google Home Hub? All those big companies have their own smart home platform, basically. So Apple has Apple Home, Google Home, Samsung has SmartThings, Amazon has Alexa. And so based on what you use the most, that's the platform I would go with. If you have a situation where, say, you have an iPhone and your significant other has an Android phone, or say you have an iPhone and you have an Amazon Echo and you want to use all those things together, then I would actually go with a platform like actually Google Home or Samsung SmartThings, because both of them are very good at playing nicely with the other like big phone operating systems and whatnot. Think about that and then sort of pick your platform. And then you want to go back to that list we made and sort of do a little research, do a little Googling and see, does this product work with this platform that I'm choosing? If it does, that's great. And it's basically run down your list and try to see, do all of these things ideally work with this platform, or at least do most of them. If you happen to find that few of them do, then you maybe want to consider a different platform. But that will just sort of set you up for success and also prevent a lot of frustration when you know, inevitably buy your, you know, Google Home Hub or Smart Things Hub or whatever, and try to add these things and realize you can't. One other thing I would say is you are going to need a smart home hub. And I know that has been a pain point for a lot of people for like the last decade. The nice thing is that the hub is now being built into a lot of products and might be in products you already own. As we were saying earlier, Amazon Echo speakers can work as a hub. Apple HomePod speakers, Apple TV streaming boxes, those can work as a hub. Your Google Home Hubs, your Google Home speakers, your Google Nest Wi-Fi routers, all of these things can work as a hub. Even your Samsung Smart TV and some Samsung Smart fridges can work as a hub. So it's likely that you already own one of these things, or if you don't, you have a lot of options and you'll get some other utility out of it rather than just having to buy a box that you then plug into your Wi-Fi router. Basically, that's sort of where you want to start. And then you can, once you have your platform and you've, you know, added your initial things you already own to it, you can start thinking about what new things you want and sort of add those on as you go.
Cool.
Okay, now, Dan, if you are not really a smart home person, I think a big question is, can you actually use your smart home if the internet goes down? Because that's a real concern for people.
Yes. So a lot of legacy products, unfortunately, rely on an internet connection. And if your internet goes out or you have a power outage, it just stops working. That said, I mentioned local control earlier. The industry realizes that this is a problem and that reliable internet is just not necessarily a thing we're going to have anytime soon, especially with climate change and extreme weather events and that kind of stuff. Basically, the industry is now moving towards this local control, and a big part of that is the Matter smart home standard that I mentioned earlier. Matter is the standard that Apple, Google, Amazon, Samsung, LG, and a few hundred other companies have all sort of coalesced around. Its main goal is to make all your devices talk to each other, no matter who made them or which, you know, platform you connect them to, they'll still talk to each other. But the other big benefit of it is it requires local control. So if you buy a Matter-enabled or Matter-certified smart plug, or they just added security cameras to the standard, or light bulbs, whatever, you name it, it has to offer some base functionality locally in your home without an internet connection. And so that's great because, yeah, there might be extra features like, you know, say your smart thermostat pulls in the local weather to, you know, enhance how it heats and cools your home. Right. If you lose your internet connection, it's not gonna be able to do that, but it'll still heat and cool your home and you'll still have some base functionality. You may even, as long as you're connected to your home Wi-Fi network, even if the internet's out, you could still control it from your phone or from your speaker. It is a problem that is being solved, but unfortunately it requires a lot of new hardware and it leaves a lot of old hardware behind.
All right, that's good to know. So the number 3 most asked question, and I'm going to preface this by asking you personally. The Mount Rushmore thing is on everybody's lips right now. So you got all those smart devices in your house. Give me your 4 Mount Rushmore of smart devices that are running in your home right now.
My do you mean like my 4 like favorite? I'm actually familiar with the Mount Rushmore thing.
No, this is a pop quiz. Tell me who's on Mount Rushmore. No, of all of the home of the smart home stuff in your employ right now, put the 4 of them on your Mount Rushmore of smart home devices.
Okay. That is tough. I have too many things and can't remember them all. I think I will go with my Amazon Echo Show now that it has Alexa Plus, because I actually was, before they rolled that out, was moving away from Amazon because I just found the old assistant really clunky and the new one just works so much better. Like so much better. And so I use it now a lot more than I ever had before. So that's definitely one. My Samsung Frame TV. I love that thing. I love that it's just a piece of art, you know, when it's off. Big benefit for me that just in the fact that my wife loves it because she finds a lot of the smart home stuff annoying. But that is like one thing she's like all for. I would say my Eero Wi-Fi routers. So Eero is a brand of Wi-Fi router that's actually owned by Amazon, but they work super well. They're like rock solid, very reliable, really fast, great Wi-Fi. And now as I'm saying that, I bet my connection will drop at some point. But it just, they work so well. And as we were mentioning earlier, they also can function as a smart home hub. It just sort of sets you up out of the box that way. So for my fourth one, so I don't personally own it, but I still have it on my front door from testing it. It's this new smart lock called the Aqara U400. And Aqara is kind of an unknown company, but they are one of the first smart locks to support this new other standard related to Matter called Aliro, which basically allows for hands-free unlocking.
Oh.
And what that means is it uses either your smartphone, and it's going to work with Apple, Samsung, and Google. So it uses your smartphone or your smartwatch, and using special radios in them can tell when you are approaching the front door and unlock it before you even touch the handle. And it works almost every time. Like when in my review period, I reviewed it for about 2 weeks before we had to publish the review. It worked flawlessly. Since then, I have encountered a few snags, but 9 times out of 10, it just works. And it's wonderful because you never have to punch in a key code or pull out a key, or, you try to use a fingerprint reader. It just works. And it's almost feels like magic.
I will say the locks, that has been my saving grace, because I am somebody who loses things. So the fact that I never have to worry about key at this point, that is very much on my Mount Rushmore of smart devices. Thank you for taking us through that, Dan. But how would you say you make your home more secure with smart tech?
So if you want to make your home just feel safer, I would say the 2 things you really want to think about are security cameras and essentially your traditional alarm system. Not saying you should go out and buy a traditional one. There's lots of newer smart ones, but that's where I would start. This is a topic very sort of like near and dear to me because we were the victims of an attempted burglary a few years ago, which was really scary. Yeah. We were all home and sleeping, and it was the middle of the night. So thankfully nothing happened, but just, you want that peace of mind. And when you have an experience like that, it really sort of opens your eyes.
And shout out to Wally.
Yes, shout out to my dog Wally, who heard them and started barking and scared them away, which was great. He was really, a dog is the best security system.
Amen. The original smart home device is a beautiful puppy.
Yeah. But that's where I would start. A lot of people will start with just cameras, and that's fine. If you want to do both, I would then consider something like a Ring or some others, Simply Safe or Eufy. They offer the whole package basically, and it's very piecemeal, and you can sort of choose what you want and still get your professional monitoring just to give you that added feeling of safety.
So Dan, before we get out of here, what haven't we asked you about smart home tech that would help someone get over their inertia and actually try it? Like, what's a gateway device into getting your home to be not so dumb?
I think what I would say to people is think about what like these sort of common pain points or problems are in your home, whether that's you just want to save money or you want to feel safer or
you're always losing your keys.
Or you're always losing your keys, or you want to know when your kids get home from school, like just sort of things like that. And think about those problems and then pair that up with a product basically, and think about what product might help solve that problem, because that's really where smart home becomes valuable. It's when it solves those common everyday problems for you. In terms of a gateway device, I actually would go with something like either a smart thermostat or a smart plug, mainly because of the money saving potential. So smart thermostats are a great way to save money on your heating and cooling bills. And then smart plugs, or even like you can get these, like a smart power strip, like it's the whole power strip is smart.
Yeah.
Those are great because they allow you to cut down on what we call vampire energy devices, things like your TV when it's idle, even your phone chargers being left plugged into the socket, all those sorts of little things, they do still add up. It's gotten better over the years, but they can add up to like a couple $100 annually on your electric bill. And that's a great device that you can basically set up to just turn off all those things that are plugged into it whenever you're not home. And it just is one little way you can save some money right there.
Love that.
Oh, let me sneak one more in. I'm sorry, because you
That's
talked
okay.
about like good things, but I'm wondering, like, from your user experience, you tried so many of the things. What is the dumbest smart home thing you bought in your house? Because there's light bulbs, there's things that'll like tell you to water your plants. There's the toilet, like there all of these things. But which one is like, okay, this is smart, but it's dumb.
So that would have to be my refrigerator. So it's not one of those like fancy smart ones with like a big tablet or touchscreen or anything like that, but it is smart and you can change like the temperature and whatnot from your phone. But what kills me with it is that for the longest time, it could not tell me when one of my kids left one of the doors open. And I know it has the ability to do that because in the app, it would log whenever the door was open and shut, but it would not send me an alert saying that the door was left open. So it had the data, it just didn't have the ability to tell me the problem. They did eventually, like several years, I bought this fridge in 2019. 6 years later, it finally got the ability to do that, but it doesn't even do that reliably. Like sometimes it'll send me the alert and sometimes it won't. And actually, now that I think about it, I haven't gotten an alert from it in, I think, several months. So there you go. Just not very smart.
Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
Yes, and thank you for helping us navigate this world of smart home devices. We appreciate it, Dan.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun.
So, Brian, you heard what Dan has to say. He has 70 plus devices in his home. You have a couple. Are you thinking about buying more? Like, has your opinion changed on the whole smart home living?
My vision of having a smart home would be like a James Bond villain, where I could walk into my house and not touch the door and say sexy lights, and then have everything like vibe and make the mood, and like music starts playing and like something in the refrigerator pours me a martini. That is my idea of a smart home. And until we get there, I'll just keep pressing buttons and doing things myself.
Well, the lights are there. You can do that. You can do the lights. The martini, you'll have to wait on. Okay?
Can we make that happen?
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Talking Carts. For more information on smart homes and to check out our ratings, check out cr.org. Until next time.